Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our fourth night of forums sponsored by the Yuba-Sutter Chamber of Commerce, the North Valley Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and the Yuba-Sutter Farm Bureau. And we'd like to remind you, first of all, my name is Bob Harlan, and with me tonight is Angel Diaz from the North Valley Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. All of the events are broadcast live through the Chamber website at www.yubasutterchamber.com. At the top of the page it says Meet the Candidates 2012. Click on that and it'll take you to the forum page. The live event is at the top of the page, and as you scroll farther down, keep scrolling because we have all of our forums listed that we have done so far and that will be coming up over the next week. And you can actually watch that podcast of any of the previous forums that you'd like to. And those of you who are candidates can certainly recommend that your followers look at those podcasts as well if you choose. Well, tonight our first presentation is going to be for the 3rd Congressional District. And of course, we have been in the 2nd Congressional District for many, many years, and Wally Herger was going to be moved to the north, and he has since retired, and there's a separate race going on in Butte County northward. So we're in a new congressional district to us, and our representative currently is John Garamendi, and his opponent is Kim Vann. Good evening to both of you. And you have a little button there if you want to push that, and there should be a white light that comes on indicating that it's working properly. Let's go ahead and start with Kim Vann. If you'd like to give up to a 3-minute opening statement, please.
Well, good evening, and thank you so much. And I will apologize for my voice up front. So if you can't hear me, you guys in the back row, give me a little go louder, please. You know, I was born and raised in this congressional district. My family's been here for over 5 generations, and I have this wonderful 9-year-old son. And I truly believe that this country is not headed in the right direction to leave the best future to him. You know, my grandfather, who was a World War II vet, knew that he was leaving a better America to his children. And my dad, who's a Vietnam vet, knew that he was leaving a better America to me. But I truly do not believe that we are on a path to leave a better America to my children and someday my grandchildren. We need common sense solutions that grows the economy, common sense solutions that creates new private sector jobs. We need to be able to work across the aisles to find solutions so that we can grow our base and grow our economy and get America back to work and get us going in the right direction again. That's why I decided to run for Congress, and I'm absolutely pleased to be here this evening, and I thank the Yuba-Sutter Chamber of Commerce for putting this on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. John Garamendi, up to 3 minutes for an opening statement.
Thank you very much. I want to thank the Chambers for hosting us. These events are extremely important. They give us all an opportunity, obviously Ms. Vann and myself, an opportunity to present ourselves, but it also gives you an opportunity to see us live and real. I've had a marvelous career. I could not ask for anything more than the opportunity to be involved in public service as I have since 1974. In the Assembly, in the Senate, as Insurance Commissioner, elected twice to that job statewide, Lieutenant Governor, and also as Deputy Secretary at the U.S. Department of Interior with the Clinton administration. It has been an opportunity to learn, to really learn. I've attended the best university for the last 30-some years, and that's the University of Public Policy, where you and others who know what is going on will come and help me understand the critical issues. Over the years, I've always said there are really just 5 things that we must do year after year after year. And if we do those 5 things as a society, as an economy, then we will prosper. The first and foremost is to have the very best education system in the world. And on that score, there are 2 very different paths that are being proposed in this year's election. One that I would like to see, which is an investment in education. The other path, which has been put forth by the Romney-Ryan Republican budget, is one that would disinvest in education. Secondly, we have to build the infrastructure. We need to make sure that our transportation systems, our water systems, our sanitation, flood systems are the best. Without that, you can't move, you can't prosper, and quite likely, you may very well die in a flood. You also need to make sure that we have the best research in the world. And fortunately, in this district, we have an incredible research institution, the University of California, Davis. Again, there's a clear path here. The budget that's been put forth by the Romney-Ryan Republican budget would disinvest in research and cut down on the research. Finally, we have to make things in America. We need to rebuild the American manufacturing base, and that includes agriculture as well as manufacturing of all kinds of things. I've proposed legislation that is actually taking and working its way into pieces of law now that would say that our tax money, your tax money, my tax money be spent on American-made equipment. So if we're going to have a bus that's using our tax money to be purchased, then that bus must be made in America, at least 85% of the content. Similarly, if it's a wind turbine or a solar system, make it in America. Those make it in America gives us a chance to rebuild our industries. And finally, we have to be willing to change. If we don't, we will not be able to succeed. Those are the things that have always been on my mind and have always been the guideposts for the policies that I've pursued over these many years. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we're going to ask a series of questions where you have 1 minute apiece to answer, and the person that's originally asked the question will get 1 minute to rebut. And I believe, do we have the cards going around now? We have some cards available. If you'd like to have a card to write a question, please raise your hand and Dale will give you a card for the audience, and we'll try to get as many of them in as possible. We can't guarantee that we'll get to all of them. But the first question, we'll start with Mr. Garamendi. With major floods or the major threat of flooding coming in every decade but the 1970s, Yuba-Sutter residents are highly concerned over levee issues. In fact, Sutter County has among the top highest number of miles of levees in the country, with the Feather and Sacramento rivers, the Sutter Bypass, and Cross Canals. What can you do to accomplish getting more, and I mean many millions of dollars, out of Washington for even more than is already planned as far as levee work is concerned?
Well, first and foremost, you need to understand the nature of the problem. And I've been involved in the issues of flood and water in California for 3 decades. And so understanding how the system works, not only the water systems and the flood systems, but the governmental systems is critical. Secondly, we need to understand that the old way of doing it isn't the way it's going to be done in the future. The current rules in Congress prohibit earmarks, which was the way these programs were done. Thirdly, we need to work within the new system. I was on the Transportation Committee until the Republicans took over. The Transportation Committee is where the Corps of Engineers budget is developed and the programs are put into law. I expect that I would go back on that this next time out. Certainly if the Democrats take control, then that would be the case. Or if the ratios are changed, I would go back and I would be in a position to advocate and to expand the overall budget so that we would have the opportunity to direct, under the new rules, the money into the system. Obviously, it's extremely important, and there's extreme risk in this entire district.
Ms. Vann?
Well, I remember when we had the catastrophic floods here, I remember being over by Peachtree and watching those waters rise. Like I said earlier, being born and raised in Colusa County. Can you turn your mic down? Let me start over for a second. I apologize. I hadn't pressed my button. I remember seeing Peachtree when we had the catastrophic floods, and I remember being in Colusa County when we watched those floodwaters rise and rise over the top of our levees. We have to address our levee issues. We have agencies who are on 2 separate pages right now. We have one agency that wants us to clear vegetation from the levee, which will degrade our levees, and then we have other agencies that want to turn over the responsibility of these levies to local government. We can't allow that to happen. We have to find a way from the federal government to fund the maintenance and improvement of these levees for long term. And being the majority, hopefully the Republicans will keep the majority in the House. And me, being in the majority, we will make sure and bring those monies back into this district for flood protection. That's an absolute #1 priority on my list.
Mr. Garamendi, do you have a response?
I have fought floods before. I live in Walnut Grove and have lived there for the last 35 years. It's in the Delta, and we had a flood in '86. I understand the enormous impact that floods have. Beyond that, we've also pushed a piece of legislation that is gaining traction and likely to go into effect that deals with the Corps of Engineers and the flood insurance program, so that there would be an agricultural flood zone established in America that would allow the agricultural community here in this area and throughout this region to be able to obtain insurance and to continue to provide the structures they need to carry out the agricultural thing. This is a piece of legislation that has broad support in this community and in this district and across this nation. We probably will be able to get this in, maybe even in the lame duck session, if the right opportunity comes out. We missed it just by 1 or 2 days because the Senate decided to move the flood reauthorization legislation in a specific piece of legislation without any warning, and we missed the opportunity by 1 day.
Angel?
All right. Well, this one we'll start with Ms. Vann. And the question is, how tied are you to the party you represent? In other words, will we see you voting always or nearly always with your party? Or can you be, as Tina Fey once said, be a little mavericky at times?
Well, I've known to be a little ornery and a little too independent for my own good, and I will tell you I did not have the support of most, if not all, of the Republican Central Committees during the primary, so I think that speaks for itself. I can absolutely be a little mavericky, as she says, but let me give you some further examples. I'm a county supervisor. I hold a nonpartisan office. It's our job to run a county, not based on party politics, but on getting things done and growing our economy. I serve as the chairperson for the Regional Council of Rural Counties. That's a 32-county organization. They have elected me to be their leader on the state and federal issues. They come from all across the gamuts on politics. So I actually have experience in doing just that. My voting record doesn't side 98% with my party.
Thank you. Congressman Garamendi?
You have to be bipartisan. If we're not bipartisan, things are not going to get done. The Congress is split very narrowly and likely to continue to be that way. I want to give you a couple of examples. There was an effort on regulating agricultural dust. I went against my party on that issue and voted to not allow those regulations of agricultural dust to go forward. And I'm also working across the aisle with one of the most conservative Tea Party Republicans in the nation on making certain that the American laws follow the Bill of Rights. Right now, the law in the United States allows an individual to be picked up and to be held indefinitely without trial, without a hearing, if they are suspected of being a terrorist. We want to change that. We want to follow the Fifth and Sixth Amendment, that anybody that is arrested in any person arrested in the United States is brought before a judge, tried, and given his day in court or her day in court. So we work across the aisle on critical, important issues.
Ms. Vann?
Well, I commend the Congressman for his last statement on working across the aisle on those issues. I would ask you all to look at his voting record. His voting record is 98% with Nancy Pelosi, with his party, 98% of the time. I think that sends a pretty clear message.
Okay. We have a question from the audience. It's kind of a follow-up to the first question on flood control, and we'll start with Mr. Garamendi. It has been decades since additional water storage capacity has been built in Northern California. The western portion of the 3rd District has been identified as suitable for creation of massive additional storage. What are your respective positions, and what steps are you prepared to take to see the creation of additional water storage for Northern California?
Very important question and a very important possibility, and I think it will happen. This is the Sites Reservoir issue. I've been working on water issues for more than 30 years. I am probably one of the more knowledgeable people in Congress on California water issues. It's absolutely imperative that there be additional storage. Sites Reservoir offers an enormously important opportunity, not only for storage, but also for providing flexibility in the delivery of water down the river. This is a project that I have been working on for some time, working with the agencies, the joint powers agencies. We've had numerous meetings here and in Washington. Most recently, I brought the environmental community to a meeting so that they could understand the benefits that the Sites Reservoir brings to the environment. They were unaware. They were in opposition to it. I think they're going to be in support of it. We're also trying to move legislation along so that the Sites Reservoir will be in the next Water Resource Development Act, and I think that's a very good probability.
Ms. Vann?
I've been working on the Sites Reservoir for over 12 years now, and currently I sit on the Sites Reservoir Joint Powers Agreement as the alternate now. And it's absolutely imperative that we get some storage in the North State. Whether it's Sites or possibly looking at Shasta and the future raise there, we have to move on it. But the difference is when we have study after study after study, we're at the point that we actually need the authorization language to construct it. Now, the Congressman had an opportunity last year to get that authorization language put into a bill and move forward with that bill. But we cannot talk about any other water issues until we get some storage in the North State. And just for the record, I do not support the peripheral canal or sending water down to Southern California. I support building storage in Northern California.
Mr. Garamendi?
The Sites Reservoir legislation, actually, I did get it into a piece of legislation, and unfortunately it was amended by the Republicans to prohibit the federal government from being involved in the planning. It was a particularly stupid amendment, and it ultimately did not find its way into any law, fortunately. However, the water systems in the state of California are important. And we need to understand that we need to protect the existing water rights of those in Northern California, those who have the early water rights. The legislation that passed the Congress this year, under the authorship of Representative Nunes and with broad Republican support, only a handful of Republicans opposed it, would have taken away the water rights of Northern California, would have stolen 800,000 acre-feet from Northern California and given it to the Westlands Water District, which has the farmers in that district and their PAC given substantial money, over $40,000, to my opponent.
All right, thank you. This is a combination of two questions from folks out there. So I'm going to say it exactly how they have placed it. So, I personally benefit from Obamacare. I'm in the donut hole. Are you for repealing all or some of Obamacare? And the other question that goes along with it, what will you do to make sure that the people who don't have health care get good health care?
That one's to me first. I will support repealing Obamacare. I do not support the individual mandate. I do not support the tax, and I do not support the penalties. We've gotten ourselves into a situation where we are going to raise the cost of insurance premiums on individuals in the middle class by over $2,500 a year. We're in a situation where we have an IPAB board, an independent board, that's going to be making health care decisions for you and I. We have $700 billion that's been stripped away from Medicare to fund this, and I will not continue to support that.
Congressman Garamendi?
I've been involved in health insurance for 8 years as the state insurance commissioner, fighting to make sure that individuals, companies in the state of California are given what they have contracted for with private health insurance companies. The repeal of the Affordable Health Care Act will cause 40 million Americans, some 6 million Californians, to lose their opportunity to have health insurance. They will be uninsured, and they will be sick, and they'll wind up at the emergency rooms, and they will get whatever care is available, and the rest of us are going to pay for it. The reason for the mandate is that everybody is in this system together. The Affordable Health Care Act does not take $716 million of benefits away from any senior. In fact, the $716 billion comes out of the pockets of the insurance companies where they were receiving an unnecessary bonus, your tax money, given to the private health insurance companies, and fraud and abuse with the remaining money. All of that money was plowed back into benefits for seniors.
Okay. Ms. Vann?
We have one of the best healthcare systems in the world. And when you hastily rush a healthcare bill through without putting the patients and their doctors relationship first, you are not going to have the best outcome for any of us. The patient-doctor relationship must come first, and we must be able to provide the services that we need. There's a lot of creative things we can look at the future, but we have to move slowly at this and do the best possible legislation we can.
Thank you. Thank you very much. A lot of people have become disenfranchised with politics, even at the state and national level. In fact, I was at a bank this afternoon and talking to the teller, and she was saying how disenfranchised she is. I'd already written the question. But she said she doesn't vote. She's fed up with how government is so partisan nowadays. And what will you do to be a breath of fresh air and to bring the disenfranchised people back into the fold? Congressman Garamendi?
We all need to understand the issues. This election is critical, and there are two very, very different paths, one of which you just heard. The repeal of the Affordable Health Care Act really terminates Medicare. The Medicare guarantee will not be available in the future. We can't let that happen. And if that creates a bipartisan or a partisan divide, well, then it ought to be debated. There are critical issues out there that we need to debate, but we can work across the aisle. I gave an example earlier about working with the civil liberties legislation that we have, so that we would all have the right of a trial, regardless of why we may have been apprehended and incarcerated. The other thing we're working on is dealing with the 15 seconds, dealing with Afghanistan. Working with Republicans on the House Armed Services Committee, on which I sit, we are now moving to reduce the American exposure in Afghanistan and bring the troops home quickly. Those are examples of how we can work across the aisle, and these are critically important issues.
Ms. Vann?
Again, I'll point to my record. I will point to my service on the Regional Council of Rural Counties Board, where I was elected by 32 counties that go across both gamuts and everywhere in between, and my role as a county supervisor, which is a nonpartisan office. But I think the number one most important thing that I could say to that is making sure that our office's doors will always be open so that people feel that they can come into the congressional office, talk to us, share their concerns, and we can act on those concerns, that we always put the residents of the 3rd Congressional District above party politics.
All right, very good. Thank you.
Was there a 1 minute
yes.
rebuttal coming
I'm
back?
sorry. Go ahead.
Correct?
Yes.
Thank you. The election is extraordinarily important because of the very different views on how we're going to proceed as Americans. And I'll just go back to the Medicare issue. The Medicare issue is a fundamental program in the United States that has allowed seniors to move out of poverty and to get the health that they need. Have no doubt about this. The Ryan Romney Republican budget terminates Medicare guarantee and ultimately will terminate Medicare. I can go into the details. I won't at this moment, but it will do it. And it also dramatically increases the cost immediately for seniors. The drug benefit, the closing of the drug donut hole is over, and immediately there will be an increase to seniors who are taking drugs. There will be an end to the preventative care that is presently available to seniors, in which 30 million seniors have already taken advantage of. It's over. The Patient's Bill of Rights is gone. Discrimination will return.
Thank you very much, and thank you for calling me on the rules. Sometimes we kind of nod off up here. It's just been a long day, you know.
I just want to make clear that I was not nodding off.
Mentally, not physically.
Okay, well, Ms. Vann, starting with you. We've seen more and more problems finding enough qualified and dedicated labor for planting and harvest. In fact, here we had a big shortage during the peach harvest season that actually made the news. On the federal level, we have not had a program to allow farm workers from Mexico to enter our country to do this kind of labor. Are you in favor of a new guest worker program? And if you are, how would it work?
I am in favor of a new guest worker program, and I think it should be a year-round guest worker program as well. Our crop rotations and the things that we plant in our area, we would have more than enough work for people to do coming into this country. We have an international banking system which could support a good quality year-round guest worker program. You know, I'm from Colusa County. It's something that I know we need in the agricultural industry for our future to survive.
Thank you. Congressman Garamendi?
I'm a very strong supporter of the ag labor bill. It's necessary. I grow pears in the Delta. I know that about a third of my pears were left on the trees this year because I only had one crew available to pick the pears. And I know that's a problem in this area and up and down the Central Valley and beyond. So we need that. We also need comprehensive immigration reform. And here's where I find myself in agreement with two very diverse individuals, George W. Bush and Ted Kennedy, both of whom agreed on a comprehensive immigration reform bill. We need to do that. Now, in the next, when we go back, we're likely to take up the agriculture or the farm bill. We're working across the aisle, Democrats and Republicans, to try to figure out how to put into that farm bill an ag labor section. We may be able to do it. It's going to take out of time? Well, I'll let you just guess how we're going to get it done.
All right, Ms. Vann. Yes.
I'll finish the sentence for him. I do support those bills as well, and by keeping a Republican majority in the House, I'll make sure that we get that included in the next round of Farm Bill.
Okay, Mr. Garamendi, if elected, how will you handle the Bay Region counties you serve and still be effective for Yuba and Sutter counties? How will Yuba-Sutter keep from being placed second to the major population counties you would serve?
Well, there is nothing minor about Yuba-Sutter County. In fact, there's a significant population in this area, and there's also Beale Air Force Base, which is, together with agriculture, the principal economic driver in the area. I'm on the House Armed Services Committee. There's also another air base in this district. It's called Travis. Together, they are almost $2 billion of annual economic activity in this area. And they're both in the district. As a member of the House Armed Services Committee, I am a very strong and thus far successful advocate for both of these bases. The Beale mission is ISR, Intelligence, Surveillance, and Reconnaissance. That's, as you look and enter the headquarters over there, across the top, in God we trust, all others we watch. On that committee, we've been successful in maintaining critical missions there. Similarly, Travis Air Force Base's mobility, moving men, women, equipment around the world, and again, making sure that their missions are secure.
Ms. Vann?
Well, for those of you that don't know the entire makeup of this district, since we're talking about what the district looks like, it's Yuba, Sutter, most of Glenn County, Colusa County, a little part of northern Lake County, 9/10 of Yolo County, except for West Sacramento, Alberta and Rio Linda in Sacramento County, and then Solano County. Just about the best marker I can give you about is where 80 and 680 comes in. So it takes in Vacaville, Fairfield, then shoots over through the Delta and up towards 99 and I-5. So this is a very, very diverse district. So you have about a third in the Yuba-Sutter area, a third in what I would consider the valley floor from Glenn down to Yolo, and then a third over in the Solano County area. But let me give you the one thing that every single county in this district has in common. 85% agriculture. Even the part of Solano County we still have, they have been able to maintain their agricultural roots and still have an ag base in every single county.
Mr. Garamendi?
That's correct. It is an agricultural county, an agricultural district, but it's also far more than that. It's also a major manufacturing area. It's an area that has substantial opportunities for energy. The wind energy industry in Solano County is extremely important, and there are other opportunities in this district for wind energy, and there's certainly plenty of opportunities for solar. My legislation would require that as those industries move forward, as those plants are made and the energy produced, that it be an American-made product that your tax money and my tax money is supporting. The production tax credit, which the Republicans in Congress have refused to extend, has caused 16,000 manufacturing jobs to be lost here in the United States in the last 3 months, as that industry is forced to wind down because the production tax credit has not been extended. It will die unless it's extended in the lame duck session. I strongly support those tax credits, and I strongly support that those tax credits be directly tied to the systems being manufactured in America.
Thank you.
All right, starting with Ms. Vann. I'm a vet. We have several veterans here, several of my brothers and sisters in arms. What they'd like to know is, what experience do you bring to serve veterans? And we have a large veteran population in the district.
Well, first of all, thank you all for your service. And like I told you in my opening statement, my grandfather was in World War II, and he was shot down out of his plane, and he was kept on the march for the last 3 weeks of the war. My other grandfather was a mechanic during the Korean War, and my dad is a Vietnam vet. These three men played an extremely heavy role in who I am today and how I have come to be where I am, and such a big influence on what I do. Now, I know how important service is to our country, because none of us would be sitting here in this room, and the Congressman and I would not have the privilege to even be debating. So I will make sure and dedicate as much time and as much effort as I can to make sure our veterans are getting the benefits that they have earned and the respect that they deserve.
Congressman Garamendi.
I certainly agree that we must take care of the veterans. They've taken care of us, they've protected this country, and they brought us to where we are, whatever war, whatever time they served. I have been working on veterans issues, supporting veterans issues since 1974. In the early years, it was the veterans' home over in the Napa Valley. A major question came up whether they would be able to extend those homes. As an insurance commissioner, fighting for veterans when the health insurance companies or other companies were predators on them. In Congress, I have voted for every single veterans bill that has come along, and there have been some major ones. First, the funding for veterans programs. Secondly, working very diligently on making sure that my own legislation, which I think is going to have a good opportunity in the lame duck or next year, of ending the predatory lending practices, and also in that bill making sure that employers do not any longer simply waive off veterans that have gone off and then been deployed and come back seeking their job once again.
Thank you. Ms. Vann?
Well, the veterans in this area, actually all throughout this district, use the Oakland office to process any of their requests and any of their veteran service. It is the worst office in the United States. It has the worst ranking in the United States, this Oakland office does. We have to start gutting these regulatory backlogs that are causing the services to be delayed to our veterans. You know, Congressman Miller, who's chairman of the Veteran Service Committee, was out here with me a couple weeks ago, and we talked about the problems in the Oakland office. And he asked why no one has had a field hearing out here to address all the problems. This is what's causing the veterans not to be able to get the services they need, and that will be on my list of things to address as soon as we get in. Holding field hearings to hold Oakland accountable for how they are not addressing these veterans' issues.
Thank you.
And this is going to be our final question from the moderator. In just a moment, the candidates will get to ask a question of each other, so I think they probably have that question figured out. But we have another question from the audience, and the audience member asks, Yuba and Sutter counties have a high Latino population. What is your stance on illegal immigration and amnesty for these illegal immigrants? Congressman Garamendi. As I said earlier, I am a strong supporter of comprehensive immigration reform. That includes securing the borders. It also, as proposed by Kennedy and George W. Bush, would provide a path to regularize those men and women that are not here legally. My personal view is they've broken the law, they ought to be paying a fine, some sort of penalty, and then put on a path to regularize, maybe a path to citizenship if they wanted to, maybe a path to a green card or an opportunity to be here legally. In addition to that, I'm a strong supporter of the DREAM Act. The DREAM Act is really important. These are young men and women that did not have a choice about being here. They've been raised here in the United States. They are in every way an American, and they need to have the opportunity to become a part of our society.
And so that's not only the California version of the DREAM Act, but that's the federal version. I also support the president's version of it, which deals with employment.
Ms. Vann?
Well, the first thing we need to do is secure our borders. The second is clean up the legal immigration process. It's ridiculous that it can take $20,000 and 18 years to immigrate to this country legally. And the third is put together a good guest worker program. Once we get those three components in place, we will have a successful immigration program. The regulatory and the bureaucratic backlog to get in here legally is what causes so much of the problems to occur. So once we address those three, we can really have a good fix. And we can't keep kicking the can down the road. We all talk about we need to do it. We actually need to step up and do it. And we need to stop using it as a political football.
Mr. Garamendi.
It certainly has been used as a political football, and both the Democrats and Republicans are guilty of doing that. And we do need to deal with this. It is a major issue in the United States. It's one that has significant political repercussions, and we can move it forward. In trying to deal with the ag labor bill, as I discussed earlier, it turns out that those people that have introduced the legislation, Mr. Lundgren, for example, refused to help me work on it because he said the folks in the South wouldn't like it. And I'm going, how about the folks in California that you represent? Would they like it? And the answer is yes, they would like an ag labor bill. But maybe it's a little too political. Comprehensive reform is even more so. In both cases, we have to do it. It's absolutely essential. The present system is not workable at all. And as we go through this, we also need to recognize that these are human beings that have been with us a long time, and for the most part, the greatest majority of them, have been productive citizens in our communities for years and years and years. And they need a chance to be a full part of this economy and society.
Ms. Vann?
Well, I agree with what the Congressman said, but, with all due respect, he's been in Congress for 3 years, and when his party was in charge, he had the opportunity to introduce that type of legislation, and it hasn't happened. So again, we have to quit talking about it, quit using it as a political football, and take the first step forward, take our licks politically either way, and move forward. I was born and raised in Colusa County. This is very much a human issue for me. These are my friends, my neighbors, and some family members. So we can't just keep playing with this and saying, oh yeah, I'm going to do something about it, while I've actually been there for a couple years and didn't do anything about it. That's so frustrating, and enough is enough.
Mr. Garamendi?
I think I've been back on this.
Oh, we've already been back and forth? Okay.
But I'll take another shot.
I've never seen a politician that doesn't take another opportunity. Okay, 2 strikes, I'm
There's
out.
always a revelation.
One more strike and I'm out, and then Angel's got to take over. We've come to the point now where each of the candidates can ask a question of each other, of the other person. And so we'll start with Ms. Vann. You can ask a question of Mr. Garamendi, and then you'll have a chance to respond.
What's your favorite color? No, I'm only kidding. I'm only teasing. With all due respect to the support that you claim to have for agriculture, while in Congress, over 19 votes have come to your desk that the California Farm Bureau and that the American Farm Bureau have asked you to support. And you've only supported 4 of those. Out of 19, you've supported 4 of those. How is that supporting the ag industry in this district?
Your question is perfect. How does that support the ag industry in this district? That's the question. The ag industry in this district is not the ag industry in the Midwest or in the South. There's a very, very significant difference. And you need to understand the difference. You need to understand agriculture here and the way in which the legislation is put together. Much of that legislation is not beneficial to this area. For example, the Korean Free Trade Act did not include rice. And the rice industry in this district did not support the Free Trade Act. They didn't oppose it. They didn't support it. I chose to oppose it because it didn't support it. The emergency legislation that the American Farm Bill supported for the drought in the Midwest was totally paid for by almost totally eliminating the EQIP program, the Environmental Quality Improvement Program, which is crucial to the rice industry in this district.
Ms. Vann?
Well, actually, the 19 votes were supported by the California Farm Bureau, not just the American Farm Bureau. And the rice industry did not oppose the Korean trade agreement. They weren't vocally opposed to it. But those are just two pieces of legislation, so that would be 6 of the 19. So again, I would point to the record and ask people to really look at what we say versus what our records are.
Okay, Mr. Garamendi, you have a chance to ask a question of Ms. Vann.
Yeah. Let's talk about seniors for a while. Let's talk about about where seniors are in the current political process. There's a very, very clear distinction between where I'm going and where the Republicans are going on seniors. The repeal of the Affordable Health Care Act and the impact that it has on Medicare and Medicaid. In the Ryan Romney Republican budget, 1/3 of the Medicaid money is gone. 60% of the Medicaid money goes for nursing homes. We're talking seniors here. Medicare, as we know it, disappears, and the Medicare guarantee disappears, and seniors are tossed to the whims of the private insurance companies, which I guarantee you are all about profit and not about people. Ms. Vann, why, given this extraordinary impact on the senior community, do you support the repeal of the Affordable Health Care Act and the impact that it has on Medicare and seniors?
I support the repeal of the act because I support Medicare. My father and my mother-in-law both depend on it. We made promises to our seniors that we can't go back on. That money needs to stay in the system, and we need to look at ways to address this program so we can have it for future generations. I refuse to ever vote for anything that will take that promise and throw it away. We have to keep Medicare in place for our seniors and keep it in place for future generations.
Mr. Garamendi?
I'm open to respond, but is that the way it is? The rules were not clear to me. I'd be happy to take it up.
Yeah, you did do a rebuttal.
Okay.
Yeah, yes.
They did a rebuttal. See, no third strike yet for me.
I just wanted to see if you were awake.
That was a foul tip.
Well, maybe see if I can do a Grand Slam homer here, as happened with the Giants today.
Yep.
You can't have it both ways. If you support the repeal of the Affordable Health Care Act, then you are going directly at the viability of Medicare. It will not survive. It just doesn't. I don't care how you want to analyze it, but it will not survive. It's gone. Along with the money for nursing home support. It's gone. It is an extraordinarily dangerous thing to do that. And in addition to that, you're going to also ramp up the cost to seniors, some $6,000 additional cost to every senior over the years ahead. And the drug donut hole will be reopened. And all of the preventative care services that are there will be gone. The $117 billion was put back into the system. The Ryan Romney Republican budget took that $716 billion and used it to support a reduction in the tax rate for the super wealthy 1%.
Okay.
And have it both ways.
Thank you very much. And now we're going to move to closing statements, up to 2 minutes for each candidate, and we'll start with Mr. Garamendi.
I've had an absolutely wonderful, wonderful career in public life. It could not have been better. I have been able over these years to deal with the issues of this region, water issues, flood issues, insurance issues. As Deputy Secretary of the Interior, I was out here more than a few times on the floods and on the waters fights. I was given the responsibility for the water in the West and actually came to a conclusion that would have solved much of the water problems, but for the fact that the Westlands Water District, at the signing ceremony for what was known as the Garamendi process, walked away from the table. We have critical issues facing us. To be able to live in this district as a rancher and a farmer, as I have for more than 35 years, and as a kid growing up on my family's ranch in Calaveras County, where they have had a ranch since 1863. I understand agriculture. I understand what's going on. I understand water. I know education. I was a regent. I was a trustee of the state university system and conducted hearings up and down the state. I have fought for veterans all of my career because I understood from my father, who was a major in World War II, what it meant to come home and have a GI Bill. And understand this, it was the Democrats that started the new GI Bill that is now available to every senior. I only wish I was there to vote for it, but I've supported the continued funding of it. I love this district. This is one of the most exciting and interesting districts in California, and I know every part of the state of California because I was a statewide official for 11 years. There's no other district like this, from the top of the Sierras to the highest mountain in the Pacific Range. And all of the water of California is in this district. The Sacramento River, from the beginning of San Francisco Bay to 200 miles up the Sacramento River, the Delta, the largest estuary on the west coast of the Western Hemisphere, that could be destroyed. Could be destroyed. I will not let that happen. I will not let it happen.
Ms. Vann?
Well, we absolutely have the opportunity to represent one of the greatest and most diverse districts in California. All of the natural resources, all of the ag production, all of the wonderful people that are in this district. Look, I was born and raised in this district, like I told all of you. My family's been here for over 5 generations. I'm not going anywhere to look for another seat to run in somewhere else. I'm not looking to go run for a different office in a few years. This is my home. I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying right here. And it would be the greatest privilege to serve the people of the 3rd Congressional District in the same way I have served the residents in Colusa County. Open, honest dialogue, an open door for anyone to come in at any time and help address any problems that we're having, whether it's from protecting our water or to our veterans. Now let me draw a distinction between us. 80% of the money I've raised in this congressional race has come from inside the 3rd Congressional District. 5% of the money he's raised has come from inside the 3rd Congressional District. This is my home. You all are my family and my friends. And there would be no greater privilege than to serve all of you in Congress. So I thank you all for being here this evening and listening to both of us.
And thank you, both of you, for being here this evening.
Thank you very much.
And that concludes this portion of our evening. At about 7 o'clock, which is about 10 minutes from now, we'll have the candidates for Yuba City City Council. I didn't strike out totally.
Excellent question. You just very fine. We've had debates before. This is a good set of questions.
Oh, great. Well, thank you. Thanks for the feedback. Thank you.